there was some news that came out, I guess it was over the weekend.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. About that Nike, which is a clothing and apparel company.
I've heard of it.
Are launching a national 7-on-7 league. My thoughts on 7, and of course, folks in Texas know all about 7-on-7 football. It's a passing league. It goes on
it is.
it goes on during the off season, during the summer. There are some people who love it. There are other people who who aren't in love with it.
Right.
I probably fall closer to the latter category than the former, but I'm coming around on it.
You and I are on, I don't know, different ends of the spectrum, but definitely different spots.
Yeah.
On the spectrum.
We're on different spots of it. I don't mind it. I think I'm coming around on it.
Sure.
But I think that what it is it's a nice, teaser. It's a nice appetizer.
Is that how you look at it?
Yes. It's a nice, when you're at a party.
Yeah.
And which parties like you would have people walking around with trays of this stuff. For me, it would be set out on like a stolen bench. That there's just food that you pick before your main course.
Right.
That's kind of what it is.
Sure.
It's nice.
Okay.
I don't think it's the most amazing thing in the world, but that's just me. Nike is now, but that is just Texas. That is what it is. Right. Texas or Nike is launching a national 7-on-7 league.
Mm-hmm.
With 5 cities involved.
Right.
San Francisco, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and Kansas City. First and foremost...
Of note, no Texas teams. Kind of weird.
Yeah. First and foremost, that seems odd.
Well, so have I told you why I think this is? This is
No.
completely unconfirmed.
No.
You know as well as anyone who follows the game closely here that Adidas has a stranglehold on the state tournament every July here in the state. And I suspect that has to have something to do with it.
Probably.
Making some inroads might be difficult because of the hold that not only Adidas but IMG, because I think the winners of that can be part of the national tournament that IMG and Adidas hold in
I believe that's correct.
Georgia,
That sounds
I think,
right.
at the end of summer.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
So this national 7-on-7 league is getting launched by Nike. And one thing that it got me thinking about is the role that 7-on-7 is going to play in the future of football. And we spent a lot of time grousing about the future of football.
Right.
Because
there's a lot to grouse about.
Football's dangerous.
Yep.
Football is, and that's not an opinion so much
No.
as it is, I think, a pretty verifiable fact.
Right.
That football is a dangerous sport. People get hurt a lot playing football. That's not to say that they don't get hurt playing other sports. It's just to say that people do get hurt a lot playing football. And that the spotlight right now is on football, and especially on concussions. With the news that came out, yesterday about that other guy who...
Tyler Sash,
who died at the age of, 28?
27.
27?
Accidental painkiller overdose.
Yeah, but he was diagnosed with CTE.
Yeah.
So it got me thinking about the future of football and what football is going to look like in 50 years.
Okay.
And I wonder if 7-on-7
is the future.
There
are some people that really feel that way. I don't really buy it. And that's from someone who actually enjoys going to 7-on-7 tournaments. But I don't think I go because the games are entertaining.
Yeah.
I think I go more in the past to size up what the next year's skill players look like for the actual games in the fall. To see maybe touted prospects or up-and-coming prospects, just kind of see their tools in action. People that stood out over the years, if I was covering Central Texas, I would go to 7-on-7 because Andrew Luck was going to be at 7-on-7. I get to see him in person. Or I never got to see Lake Seastrunk.
Yeah.
Another one. So you got to see him in person. Just players like that.
The thing that interests me about it is, obviously, for those who don't know, 7-on-7, you don't wear pads, and there's it's basically flag football. It's basically flag football. And there's obviously safety advantages to that. You don't have the minor hits in
Right.
that go on and with the offensive and defensive linemen.
Yeah.
And you don't have the big hits.
Right.
You're taking a lot of the physicality, not all of it, but a lot of the physicality out of the game. And it's still fun to watch, just different in a different way. And I wonder if that's where we're moving. And I wonder if in the future, and these changes tend to be glacial. This is not something that's going to happen tomorrow or the next day or next year or probably in 10 years.
Right.
But at some point, and this is a big thought that I've had, at some point there's going to be a tipping point for football as we know it. And
it's going to have to go another direction.
It's going to have to go another direction because the players are getting bigger, the players are getting stronger, the players are getting faster, and therefore the game is getting more dangerous.
Yeah.
Because while we are getting bigger and stronger and faster, we are not getting more repellent to injuries.
Right.
And so I wonder if down the road, and we're talking 50 years down the road, 7-on-7 has replaced high school football. And this is going, it's something that I know is not going to be popular for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But again, there's going to come a tipping point.
Yeah.
And where it starts is in youth football. It starts with youth football, and depending on what the numbers are as far as participation, because I know that's a conversation that's happening in a lot of households.
Right.
It's happening all across the nation, all across the state, is are we going to let our kid play football?
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, and again, it's not tomorrow, but there is going to be a moment where the tide turns against football as we know it. And the way to make football safer isn't, I don't think, this is my opinion,
Right.
isn't advanced helmets.
Right. You and I differ on this point. We're going to veer differently here.
It's not advanced helmets.
Right.
It's not, change. It's not rule changes, okay? Those are minor changes. The way to fix football is that you've got to find a way to minimize the amount of big time, collated and cumulative, that's what I'm looking for, contact.
Sure.
And I wonder where that is, and I wonder if the end game isn't something like 7-on-7.
Yeah, see, I just don't see that. I think that's too much of a departure from the actual game that we have now. Mm-hmm. My whole thing is actually, it's not really, it's kind of what you were saying earlier. I think a change in equipment is the fundamental sort of shift. But I don't think it's better helmets. I think it's different helmets. I think it's helmets that aren't a weapon.
Yeah.
Right. We've got these hard shells, these metal face masks. I actually am more of the belief that the sport needs to go more towards rugby, but still maintain the style of play as much as possible. So if that means gel padded helmets that keep players from putting their heads in people's chests or in front of their knees because there is an imminent danger to doing that for your head.
Yeah.
It will change the way the game's played. Because in rugby, if you talk to anybody who plays rugby, one of the first things that they say is if you're transitioning from football to rugby, you need to learn right away below the waist tackling is going to get your head smashed.
Yeah.
You don't do it. It's you're asking for trouble, so you need to tackle above the waist or higher.
And you're seeing already a move toward that. You're seeing
Right.
a lot of
We're
teams.
getting way more rugby tackling in the game itself.
Yes. But I think that you're right. And I think that when you make the norm of the game self-preservation based.
Yeah.
Whereas right now,
It's destroy the other guy at all costs.
As somebody who played football, when you have a helmet on, you feel invincible.
Right.
You really do. You're
Right.
looking at yourself and you're going, wow, look at this helmet, look at these pads.
Yeah.
Like, I can go out there and do whatever I want
Right.
and I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
I also got a concussion wearing a helmet.
Right.
Because of that same idea and because of the way that we're teaching to play football.
Yeah.
I think that there does have to be a fundamental shift. It does need to go away from that. I do wonder, though, if down the road, the ultimate end game is going to be in 7-on-7. And so that's why this 7-on-7 league that the National League, maybe that's what ends up taking hold.
The other interesting thing with this, and I'm sure you've read a few of these articles too, is the NCAA extremely leery of this because it's as close to AAU as football has ever had.
Well, and that's
been such a problem on the basketball ranks.
And even in Texas, that's been a big concern that people have raised. Not necessarily me. I think that my notion on recruiting regulations are pretty clear. I really don't care. Yeah. Honestly, whatever it takes.
It is what it is.
If you need to pay the kid, pay the kid. Yeah. But that's another conversation. But I
tune in tomorrow.
I understand. I understand the NCAA's concerns.
Yeah.
Because this is an opportunity that you can go and have pretty much unregulated contact with recruits. Yeah. So I understand that. But it was interesting when this came across my Twitter feed. I perked up because I was like, I do wonder if 7-on-7 is going to become bigger and more national, and with another massive brand like Nike behind them, and doing it in a national sense. Yeah, I think that's going to be good.
Again, come back to the original thing that catches your eye. Texas isn't included.
Yeah, but I also wonder, one thing I thought, my initial thought on that was, so look at, these teams are based in cities, okay? San Francisco, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and Kansas City. What city are you doing it in Texas?
I mean,
Houston?
I think it has to be DFW, just...
Does it? So you're just leaving out the Houston?
It's not necessarily...
I wonder if Texas is so big.
I get that it's tricky.
Yeah.
It's tricky. My thinking... Although, you know what? Actually, I would counter Houston because of Louisiana.
Yeah, I think
that would be my counter,
right.
Honestly. Houston is right because it's easier for the kids in Louisiana to be part of the Houston League.
What do you think? What are your thoughts on 7-on-7? Get involved in the conversation at #DCTF Live.